The content you're about to hear is a part of a paid programming segment. The views, opinions, and statements expressed belong solely to the sponsor and do not reflect those of Podcastic or its host. This segment is for informational and promotional purposes only and should not be considered as advice or endorsement. Listener discretion is advised.
One step closer, you got to get one step closer. Closer to love, closer to God, closer to who you want to be in life. Why? You got to get one step closer. Closer to love, closer to God, closer to who you want to be in life. Take one step at a time to reach your goals. Ooh.
Hey everybody, good afternoon. Thank you for tapping in to One Step Closer with Shani Shan. And every week I have amazing guests that come on to share their story, their triumphs, goals, things of that nature. And today is no different. So today, my special guest is going to be Anthony Kool-Aid Temple, a husband, a proud father of 4, 2 boys, 2 girls, and a lifelong entrepreneur. He has been in the fashion game since 1999, and he launched his clothing brand, AYV Premium Lifestyle Brand, which is now a storefront in Royal Oak, Michigan, along with his wife's clothing brand, which is the Fresher brand. They've been around about 26 years, and he is still just as passionate about the culture, creativity, and community behind the brand. In addition, he owns Accent Graphics, which is a graphic design and marketing agency where he helps business bring their ideas to life with visual strategy that stands out. And he also serves as an executive director with Legal Shield, helping people get access to affordable legal protection and empowering others through leadership and opportunity. Business is a big part of his life, but nothing means more to him than his family. His wife and kids is his why, and this is the reason why they push him every day to grow, evolve, and keep building. And he's all about purpose, passion, and definitely putting in the work. So if you can give a warm welcome to Kool-Aid.
What's up?
Hey, how are you?
I'm awesome.
Thank you so much for joining me. So I want to jump right in. Where did the name Kool-Aid come from?
My freshman year in college.
Okay.
I was probably like the first week. I always loved Kool-Aid anyway.
Okay.
But when we got together with a few people who I knew, we went to Meyer. I bought like $40 worth of Kool-Aid.
$40?
Yeah, took it to the room or whatever. And people would come knocking on my door like, man, they said you got some Kool-Aid down here, huh?
Did you put them in the bags?
No, I didn't put them in the
Okay.
I used to do that when I was in elementary school.
In the trenches? Okay.
In Eileen Elementary, I used to do that. But I would just, be like, here. So people was like, man, hey, that's Kool-Aid. That's Kool-Aid.
Okay.
And the name just stuck because everybody would call me Kool-Aid. Nobody even knew my real name. It was just, hey, Kool-Aid.
Wow.
And it just stuck.
And you still go by that today?
Yeah.
That's what's up. Do you still talk to those same friends?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. So you also have a clothing brand. Can you tell me a little bit about that? What kind of prompted that or inspired that?
AYV is Accent Your Vibe. That's my brand. I've always been into fashion. I always consider myself fresh.
Nice.
Like, even when I was in college, like, we were going to start a fraternity, and in order to be in the fraternity, you had to be one of the freshest guys on campus.
That makes sense.
So we ended up getting one of the upperclassmen. He was like, I can go to the Greek council and try to get this through. He did that, got the paperwork done, everything, but he started bringing his friends in, and they wasn't fresh.
Okay, so they couldn't hang.
Me and my guys backed out of it.
Okay.
We started beefing with them. They would do their little step practices. We was dropping bags of water out of the 10th floor. And all that.
So y'all had a strategic plan.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I was just always into fashion. And once I came home from school or whatever, I was like kind of looking into it, but it was nothing. But I started working at the plant. And I was
Okay.
like, yo, this ain't it. This
Yeah,
ain't
that
it.
was
I'm
going to
like,
be my question. So it says lifelong entrepreneur. So I was going to say, did you ever have a 9-to-5?
Yeah, and when did I start working at the plant? I went in there in 97.
Okay.
And the crazy part is I was taking a friend of mine that needed to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, can you take me up to here? It was a summertime. It was hot.
Okay.
He's like, can you shoot me up here so I can do this job application? I'm like, all right, bet. So I had a 78 Cutlass and my air didn't work.
Okay.
So,
But the windows do, and you got them there.
yeah, we went there. I was sitting in the car. I'm like, man, I'm going in. It's too hot out here. So I went in and the lady was like, you want an app? I'm like, yeah. So I'm sitting in there
Wow.
just
So
trying to
this
soak
was
the
by
air in.
accident.
Yep, soak the air in. I ended up getting the job and he didn't.
That's so unfortunate.
Then he was so mad, but I was like, shoot, this the plan. I'm gonna go ahead and rock it on out. So started in 97, then I started my brand in 99. I was like, man, I can't be in here like this. This is crazy. So I came up with a logo. I asked a few people at the job, like, you like this logo? You like this logo? They're like, yeah, that's
Cool.
sweet. It looked like a fraternity. I'm like, nah, that's not what it is. They were like, what is it? I said, it's a clothing brand I'm gonna start. They're like, oh yeah. So I went to the screen printer on 6 Mile, got 8 t-shirts printed up.
Okay.
Took them to work with me, sold them. Took that money, I ordered 24 t-shirts.
You flipped it.
Flipped them, took them to work, did a double shift, sold all 24.
Yeah, so you like,
kept
I can do
flipping.
this now at this point.
So
Okay.
then once I was in there, I was like, okay. So in 2002, we went on a February shutdown, and I was like, I'm not going back.
Okay.
I was like, I got the brand
So was
going.
it something prior to that kind of pushed you to make that change, or
No,
was it
just,
that?
It was just being in that
Okay.
plant. I was like, I got to find a way out of here.
Okay.
And that was it. Like, I just didn't go back. I was like, if I can give myself 10 to 12 hours a day, I know I could make enough money
Yeah.
where I don't have to come in here and give it to them.
Investing in you. Yeah.
So I did that, and it worked.
Nice. Nice. So how was the plant life for you?
I hated it.
You hate it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Being around those same people, it's a world inside of a world.
Yeah, people say that all the time.
People being there, they married outside, but they got a plant wife or plant husband.
I've heard of that,
You got
yeah.
people in there beefing over stupid. It wasn't for me at all.
So it's high school 2.0.
Bingo.
Pretty
Bingo.
much. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So, accent graphics.
Yeah.
How did
So
you
that
get into
came
that?
about-
It was a spinoff.
Yeah, I was making stuff for myself for the brand.
Okay.
Creating logos, doing my flyers and stuff like that. And then a couple people I know asked me, like, man, can you make me a flyer? I'm like, yeah, I can do it. Can you make me a logo? I'm like, yeah, I can do it. And I'm like, hold on.
So you was always good at this, or you started off
I
kind
taught
of doing
myself.
it for yourself?
I taught myself Photoshop, and
Nice.
it was just like, I had to figure my way through. It took me
Please.
a while.
Thank you.
Yeah, it
I'm
took
in the
me-
process of that now.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Trying to learn Photoshop.
It took me about 2-3 years to actually get good enough to say, okay, I know I can make something for somebody else.
Okay.
So that's what. So I was like, all right, I'm about to start this. And I started doing that too for some extra income.
Nice.
I'm so glad you said that, man.
So the naming behind the brand, how did you kind of come up with that?
Okay, so I took a stencil and created my logo.
Okay.
I was just drawing around on the paper, and when I came up with that, I said, yo, this sweet, it do look like a fraternity, but it's going to be like a fashion fraternity. That was what was in my mind.
Okay.
And then I thought about that. I was like, yo, this is AYV, but what is it going to stand for? So I made a list of A words, a list of Y words, and a list of V words.
Nice.
And I came up with all
So
kind
you
of
put
stuff.
thought into this.
Attire, yield, and virtue, all kind of crazy stuff. But when I came across that accent your vibe, I was like, oh, that's dope.
It got a nice ring to
That's
it.
dope,
Accent
yeah. So I
your
stuck
vibe.
with that, and I kept it rolling.
Nice. So the biggest thing with fashion is this forever changing. So what is the biggest thing you see as far as the difference between fashion then versus now?
I'm like the grumpy old man when it comes to fashion because
Okay.
I hate fashion now.
All of it.
I hate it because it's no individuality,
That's true.
especially in the inner cities and stuff. Like everybody you go outside, you'll see 100 guys. All 100 of them look exactly the same.
That's true. And the
That's
same
terrible.
brands.
Back in the 90s, you could have your crew of 20 dudes. You'll have somebody with a Dickie suit on, somebody with a full polo set on, somebody with some Jordan shorts and a T-shirt.
So completely different.
Everybody's different. It's all kind of, the same with the music. You had you had Tribe Called Quest, NWA, you got Public Enemy, you got Twista, you got things like all these different types of things. And you can listen to it all, but now everybody want to hear the same thing. It's
The
just like
same
everything is
thing.
narrowed down, it's dumbed down, and the creativity is horrible.
Yeah, everything sounds the same.
Yeah.
Everything, like you said, it does look the same. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to know that, how it was back then. So did you, like fashion more so?
Yeah, I've always
just the brands.
I've been crazy about, and Polo was always my favorite brand.
Okay,
you know, and it's my number 2 brand now because of my brand.
Exactly, and that's good. Put yourself first.
Yeah, I've always watched what Polo did. Ralph he's always stuck to his guns. No matter what the industry does, he has a lane. And that's what I was like when I started my brand. I said, I don't care what's going on in the industry. I'm going to create clothes for the people who I think should wear my clothes.
Yeah, and I feel like that's good to still be able to be relevant. Like you said, back then with Polo, and Polo still being very
and that's how you last.
Popular now.
Because I got people who, you know, I help them with their brands, help build their brands up, create their logos, make their websites, you know, connect them with manufacturers and stuff.
Nice.
But they're so busy chasing the trends, and I'll be like, dude, he's gonna die early. It's not gonna last. I've been
brick by brick.
October 24th will be my 26th year.
Nice.
You know, and the way I feel I've done that is to stay in my lane. I chose a lane and I'm dogging it. I'm gonna stay in it.
Okay, because it works.
Yeah, if you like to wear, okay, like right now, I was just talking to a friend of mine 2 days ago. He used to wear the skin tight pants with the big clunky Balenciaga sneakers and stuff, and I used to be like, dude, that looks so nasty. I'm like, that looks so nasty. That was just 2-3 years ago.
That's
so
what they that time.
I pulled a picture of him up. I said, look at that. He said, oh, that looked bad. I said, dude, it looked bad back then. You just didn't want to hear it.
Yeah, because he was wearing it. Maybe now he's made that transition.
But now he's wearing the big baggy pants. Because I told him, I said, all you got to do is watch the skateboard industry. Whatever the skateboarders are doing, that's what fashion is going to go.
That's what they mimic.
So they started wearing the baggy clothes a few years ago. I was like, yo, start loosening y'all stuff up because that's what's about to come. Now everybody wearing these big baggy pants and all that.
So you follow the trends.
I tell people that if you are a grown man and you got skinny pants on this year and then some big baggy pants on, you don't have an identity of yourself.
You sticking with the trends.
You chasing trends. You like a kid.
That's interesting because you did say stay consistent. You found your lane. 26 years. Yeah. That's amazing within itself. So what is a piece of advice that you can give a business owner or entrepreneur to make it to 15 years, 20 years?
Stick to your guns. Okay. Don't try to chase every dollar because you're going to lose.
Yeah.
Find your niche and stay in it. Because I look at AYV as the cool kid in high school. All the girls want to be with him, all the dudes want to hang around him, but everybody can't.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? So that's what I look at my brand as. I watch everybody else come out and try to hop on these trends and be with the crowds or whatever. I'm like, it's not going to work.
Nice. So I know you said that you are married and you do have kids.
Yes.
And your wife is also an entrepreneur as well. So did you guys build this kind of together or did she have that prior to?
I'm much older than her.
Okay.
So it's crazy. How I met her, she walked for me in a fashion show.
Really?
And yeah, it was at Cobo Hall. But at the time, I think she was like 17.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, okay, you know, she got a good walk or whatever. I'm going to use her for pictures.
Okay.
So I told her, I was like, look, we're going to set you up with the photographer to do the pictures or whatever. So a year or two went by. She hit me up in my Facebook DMs like, hey, you said we was going to do some pictures. Like, what are these pictures? I was like, all right. I mean, you know, we're going to do it.
She held you accountable.
Yeah. So I'm time going on. Then she ended up hosting parties, and I was throwing parties.
Okay.
So I had we were doing a party downtown at Detroit Seafood Market. It was the hottest Saturday in the city.
Okay.
And she was hosting that.
Okay.
But we had always had a friendship because I would do like pop-up shops, and I could count on her, one of my homegirls, T,
so y'all
and
were
my homegirl,
cool.
TT. Yeah, we were cool.
Okay.
Yeah. So she would be like, somebody I would be kicking it with, she'd be like, oh, that girl's so stupid kicking it with you, blah, blah, blah. So we had like super cool. It was to the point where I would get on her if she was late to a party or something. I'd be like, you can't be late to these parties. Like, people not going to want to pay. She'd be like, you know, I thank you so much for being on my head, blah, blah, blah. And then just down the line, you know, we grew this friendship, this great friendship. Then on her 25th birthday, I was like, I'm going to tell her I'm going to take her out. So I was like, hey, I'm going to take you out for your birthday. Because we had been out before or whatever. But it was like, hey, I'm about to go get something to eat. Yeah. So I told her, I was like, you know, I'm going to take you out for dinner. She was like, all right, bet. So we went out. We was talking. I was like, I think we'd make it. She was like, boy, whatever. What you talking about? So and at the time, me and my cousin lived together in my condo. And he was going to Miami. He said, man, I'm about to be gone for 13 days. I was like, okay. So I told her, I said, hey, you should come over to Netflix and chill with me. She was like, boy, you crazy. You ain't about to touch me.
Shout out to Netflix.
And I'm like, listen, I am not trying to touch you. You know what I'm saying? She was like, whatever. So she hit me back like, all right, I'm going to come over. I'm going to have a onesie on. I was like, okay, cool. So she came over. We ended up talking, playing games, eating. We didn't even watch the movie. So the next day I was like, hey, we didn't get to watch the movie. You should come back and watch the movie. She was like, you think you slick.
Time.
She was like, you think you slick. She was like, all right, I'll come back. So she was like, when she came back, I was like, all right, look, I don't want to stay by myself. I'm like, he about to be gone 13 days. I'm gonna be lonely. I'm gonna be scared in here. She like, boy, whatever.
Had the plan set.
She like, whatever. So she stayed the night again, and then she went home the next day. And I was like, hey, you coming back through? She's like, boy, are you crazy? I was like, hey, let me know. I'm gonna call you later when I get out of here back.
Listen,
so she did that. She went and got her stuff. She came over, and that when she came back, she never left.
Nice.
Yeah.
See, that's a perfect story. I love that story. So make sure you guys stay tuned. We will be right back, going to a quick break. Stay with us.
One step closer, closer. You got to get one step closer. Closer to love, closer to God, closer to who you want to be in life.
Are you an indie podcast or content creator looking to reach a wider audience? Look no further. Introducing Podcastic, the ultimate podcast network designed exclusively for indie creators like you. At Podcastic, we believe in the power of unique voices and fresh perspectives. We're here to amplify your passion and creativity, connecting you with the growing community of engaged listeners who crave original content. Podcastic is more than just a platform. It's a support system built for indie podcasters, offering a range of resources to help you succeed. From tailored promotional campaigns to professional production assistance, we're here to help you shine. Our intuitive platform makes it easy for you to be seen and heard. We do all the heavy lifting for you. You just show up and create. Plus, with our advanced analytics, you'll gain valuable insights into your audience's preferences, allowing you to refine your content and grow your fan base. Ignite your passion, expand your reach, and thrive with podcasting. Visit our website at www.podcasticlife.com to get started. Podcastic, the home for indie podcasts and content creators.
Thank you so much. We are back. Is it?
Yeah.
Is it? Sorry, y'all. We're trying to figure this out. But yes, thank you so much. I have the entrepreneur Kool-Aid here, and he has a lot of layers to him and his business, and just working on just being the freshest and things like that. So I really like the name of the brand. I like what it stands for. And 26 years in business, this is somebody that you can definitely take advice from, a page out of their book. And he definitely mentioned staying in your own lane, creating their own space, and just staying true to you, staying true to your brand. So that's the most important. And I just feel like with any entrepreneur, any business that you have, just stay true to you, stay in your lane, and find your niche. So that is the most important when it comes to that. So no, you're fine. No, you're fine. That is what happens when we are live. So as far as entrepreneurship, I know that it's not something that is easy. So I commend anybody that is out and moving forward and actually taking pride in not working for anybody else, but putting that same energy and drive into themselves. So I feel like that is great. And then also, I know that you say you have a store in Royal Oak.
Yes.
Is there a particular reason for that area, or?
No, actually, it was just God, because I had a store my very first store was on 6 Mile in Mansfield. That was back in the day, but I had a store in Midtown on Woodward in Alexandrine, right by the Garden Bowl bowling alley. I was right up on the second level. And my lease was up. And they were like, yo, we got another place down here in Midtown for you. You're going to love it, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, well, show it to me. Mm-hmm. And they was like, okay, it'll be ready, blah, blah, blah. So I'm already planning, like, all right, I'm still being Midtown.
Got you.
Cool. And it's the time where they building the queue line and all that. So I'm like, all right, bet, it's about to be on. This was a shared space. It was like 150 square feet.
So it wasn't what you thought.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, man, I can't do this. Mm-hmm. So I talked to my guy, Jay, at Bob's Classic Kicks. And he was like, you can move in the front area of the store. Mm-hmm. And I was like, all right, bet. So did that. It lasts for a few months. And her friend had a clothing store next to the store that we have now.
Okay.
And she was like, hey, the photographer is moving out next door. Y'all should check this out. So she texted us the number that was in the window. We called the landlord, and the landlord was like, yeah, come check it out or whatever. So we went down there, we checked it out, and he was like, ready to move in. He was like,
yeah. So good.
Yeah.
Just things just kind of, when things are supposed to happen, they align.
Exactly.
So how do you feel about your kids being entrepreneurs? Is that something that you push, or you allowing them to make their own?
Yeah, my older kids. I got 2 daughters and 2 sons. I got a 31-year-old daughter, a 25-year-old daughter, and I have a 3-year-old son and a 1-year-old son.
Okay.
My daughters, they do their own thing. I always try to be like, hey, you want to do this? You want to do it? They be like, Dad, I'm like, all right, don't worry about it.
That's usually how it is. Let me do my own thing.
Yeah, so I let them do their own thing. And, my sons, they're going to grow up, and I'm going to try to, hey, you're going to play football and basketball and all that. We're going to see which one of those work out, but you got to have business to fall back on.
Yeah, got to have a plan.
They're going to have to run AYV.
Okay, you see, and I feel like that's nothing wrong with that. It's just generational wealth. So I feel like that is so good. So I know we're taking a little shift here in regards to just health, just keeping up with your health, regular doctor routines and things like that. I do know that you had a point in time where thyroids was a thing for you. Do you mind going into detail about what that actually is? What were maybe some of the symptoms that let you know that something was a little off? Okay,
well, I found out about I had a mass on my left thyroid gland.
Okay.
I found that out when I went to the doctor, and they were doing an x-ray of my neck because I kept telling them I had a little neck pain or whatever, and they was like, you got a goiter on your left thyroid. And I was like, what? They was like, we'll keep an eye on it or whatever. And they was like, we can do thyroid removal surgery. I'm like, nah, I'm straight. So over time, the goiter started to get bigger.
Okay.
So, they was like, we're going to biopsy it, we're going to check it, see if it's cancerous or whatever, and, we're going to remove the thyroid. So I was cool with it. So let's do it. So they did it. They removed it. I am strong in my stance with God. So, I don't care. You could come here and chop my arms and my legs off, and I'm going to tell you, they're going to come back on, and I'm going to get up and leave. So that's just what it is. So when they did that surgery, the surgeon came in, and he was like, we found a small cancer spot under the thyroid or whatever. Wow. And I was like, no, you didn't. And he was like, we did. I said, listen, get out of my room. Yeah. And he was like, we'll talk about it, after you go home. We do, the post-op visit and all that stuff. So did that. It was nothing. I said, okay.
What was your thought process at that time when you first heard it? Okay.
Whatever.
So you just blocking it out, not letting it to even resonate.
My grandmother had issues with cancer. Okay. And we stood in the gap praying for her. They told us she's going to live for 2 weeks. And, me and my family, we don't play that. Yeah. We get with God about everything. Yes, prayer she ended up living for 4 years.
That is so good. Yeah. And just grateful for the time that was able to be spent.
Exactly.
So prayer works.
Yeah. So I, when he told me that, I went into it. I said, God, listen, I know what you told me. You told me what I say is what it's going to be. He gave us dominion and authority over all things that creep on this earth. Our bodies creep on this earth. So you got dominion and authority. So when somebody tell you, a doctor tell you, you got this, you got that. If you take it wholeheartedly, then everything in your body is going to go with that.
That is so important.
That's how we're creating.
I'm working on that now. Yeah. To change the language that I'm using when it comes to.
Most definitely. Because if you think about Jesus, what did Jesus do? He spoke to things, touched them. Yeah. He didn't headlock nobody. He didn't punch nobody, shoot nobody, nothing. He spoke. Right. And that's what we're supposed to do the same way. When Jesus left, what did he say? He said, I'm leaving to go sit at the foot of the Father. You ought to do greater things than I did. Wow. And I expect if I wanted to walk on water, I should be able to do that.
Yeah. That's where you have to believe. Exactly. And you have to have your faith in situations like that.
Yeah. And I always tell people when they say believe, I say, you can believe all you want. You have to know. Because if I tell you, like, hey, I paid $20,000 for this watch right here, you could be like, I believe him. He got some money, whatever. Yeah. But if you know.
If you know, you know.
You know. So, when it comes to God, when you say, I know this, and you wholeheartedly know, that's when God shows up.
Yes.
Yeah. For sure.
And I agree with that. Yeah. When you have to be strong in your stance, like most you said, definitely. With the guy. So that was good. So after that,
I went back to the and I told my mother. She was like, "Man, come on now, we got to go find out what's going on." I'm like, "Mom, listen, this cool." So we went back to the visit. He came in the room. He said, "Okay, well, listen, these numbers here shows that it is cancer. I said, let me tell you something. Don't say that word again.
Wow.
When it comes to me. And he was a little Indian guy. I was like, I'm not trying to threaten you or nothing, but I'm not going to allow you to speak that on me. I'm not having it.
Wow.
He said, okay, well, it looks like this is something of concern. So, you know, we need to do the test or whatever. So they did the full body test. I said, I'll take any test you want. I have no problem with that. But you're not going to tell me that this is something that I know God said I don't have to deal with.
That is good.
We took the test. He said, you come back. You know, we came back for the little post visit for that. He walked in the room. He had this paper in his hand. He pulled the computer up. He just shook his head. He looked at me. He said, Mr. Temple, you are exactly right. He said, there's not one bit of cancer in your body. He cut the screen on, showed us the scan, showed us the paper, everything. No cancer. Yeah.
I would have, a full praise breakout would have happened in that room because, wow.
Yeah.
In the time frame that was able to happen and changing because of your thought process and mental going into that, I think that's very important. So, wow.
Yeah. So so then what happened leading up to the situation? Oh, I didn't send that picture to it. Did you send? Okay. So I didn't. I had a car accident. I was coming home. I took my wife's car to the shop early in the morning. It was like 8 o'clock. The mechanic was like, meet me at 8 o'clock so we can look at it, blah, blah, blah. I was going back home, and I didn't think I was that sleepy, but I don't know, somehow I dozed off behind the wheel, ran headfirst into a tree, but I was right down the street from my house.
Wow.
So, you know, and when I hit the tree, my wife had a Chevy Cruze. Those are small cars. But when I hit the curb first, and that woke me up, and then I saw the tree, and I hit the tree. And when I hit the tree, I could see my Jordans. And so I'm like, it's like I lifted up to the point where I could see my own feet. Wow. And I was like, that's impossible in this little car. So it was smoke everywhere. I climbed out the passenger side, and there was a guy like, hey, get down, your leg bleeding. I was like, all right. So I got down, and I pulled my phone out, and I called my daughter because she was at the house with my wife. And they came out the gate, ran down and checked her. So we get on the ambulance or whatever, and they said, listen, man, we need to figure out, you know, if your ribs are broken, blah, blah, blah. I was like, my ribs are hurting bad. I was like, it's hard for me to take a deep breath or whatever. So now I was diagnosed with high blood pressure.
Okay.
And that was probably about 14 years ago. So I was taking blood pressure pills for like 9.5 years, all these different kinds, trying to figure out what it is or whatever. It would never work. So when they took me onto the ambulance, and I never claimed it though. Never ever.
Most important part.
Never ever.
Okay.
So they was like, you know, do you have high blood pressure? I was like, no, but I take blood pressure pills. So my daughter like, Dad, you would never tell the truth. I said, that is the truth.
Yeah.
I don't have high blood pressure, but I take blood pressure pills.
Yeah.
So they like, okay, sir, you know, they did all. So when they get me to the hospital, they like, okay, your ribs are not broken, but we do see a mass on your left adrenal gland. You know, when you talk to your doctors about that, you know, I said, okay, whatever. Went to my doctor and I almost forgot to tell her, but then I told her, I said, oh yeah, they said I had a mass on my left adrenal gland and need to be, you know, checked out. He was like, we're gonna send you to the endocrinologist. Sent me there. She gave me some pills. She said, I want you to take this pill and see what happens with your blood pressure. I took the pill on the second day. My blood pressure was 120/80.
Okay.
And I was like, all these years I've been taking all these pills.
Yeah.
She said that mass on your left adrenal gland is causing you to, you know, when you go pee, all your potassium come out.
Got it. Okay.
So she was like, this pill fixed that.
It's really what you don't know.
Yeah. So she was like, you can either take pills for the rest of your life or we can take that left adrenal gland out. So I'm like, Jesus Christ. Thyroid gone, adrenal gland, like, what's next?
Exactly.
I was like, I don't know, I'll think about it.
Yeah.
So I prayed about it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. But I had a little fear in me. I never wanted to ask them, like, is this going to cut my life short? So when I go,
sometimes when we ask stuff, we don't really be ready for the
not
answer.
at all.
Yeah.
So when we go to do the surgery, they wheeling me down the hall, and I was like, I got a question.
Yeah.
I was like,
That was the time.
is this surgery going to shorten my life? And the doctor's assistant was like, no. He said, if anything, it's going to add years to it because you won't be taking all the pills.
The pills, yeah.
I was like, all right, bet, let's do it. So they took it off, and after the surgery, I was checking my blood pressure, and it was like 110/70. You know? So I was getting nervous. I'm like, this is too low. And it was like, no, they was like, athletes' blood pressure would be like 105.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, bet. So long story short, I came off of the blood pressure pill.
That's good that you have been taking for 9 years.
All those years, yeah. So yeah, so that was when they took the left adrenal gland or whatever, and they was like, you know, you're good with that right thyroid. has a mask on. I was like, Jesus Christ, they took the left one.
Exactly.
So went and did the stuff for that. They ended up taking that out. Now this surgeon was like, the last surgeon left a piece of thyroid flesh under your clavicle because that thyroid had grown so big. He said he left a piece of flesh under there and just closed you back up. And I was like, so now what am I supposed to do? He was like, honestly, I can't get to it. I tried. He said, but I can't get to it, and we can't just stick stuff down and we could puncture your lung. So I was like, all right, so what am I have to do? You're going to have to get your chest bone cut open, like open heart surgery. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not doing that. So I prayed for 3 years. I was like, God, listen, when I go back next time, I know they're not going to see it. It's not going to be there. It's not going to be there. That didn't happen, which is cool with me because God, He answers everything. I'm like, I ain't tripping.
Doesn't mean denial.
So I said, let's do it. So I went on a trip to Miami, and my surgery was the next day after I got back. Got back. I was a little nervous. I was like, man, they're about to cut my chest bone open. My thing was the recovery. Like, how am I going to do? Like, what am I supposed to do?
I was just going to ask that first, how the mental was with everything just back to back to back.
I'm like, man, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I got babies or something. Like, okay. But long story short, they did the surgery. They were supposed to send me home the next day. But God, he knows his timing is perfect. Impeccable.
Please.
We on the same wavelength. So
that's it.
That first day that they were supposed to send me home, they kept me. They kept me the next day too. Now I don't even remember some of this stuff. I'm like, yo, I was in the hospital for 3 days. I don't even remember some of the day. I'm like, I don't remember my kids being up there, nothing. But what happened, I was in the hospital and I coughed. One little cough, I was like, and I felt my chest start to swell up, and I couldn't breathe. I'm like, hey, nurse.
Right.
She came out and said, it's hard for me to breathe with my chest swelling up. She called, whatever they say over the thing. Everybody came running in there. Surgeon came in there, cut me right back open because they did the cut there and the cut across my neck because the mass, when they went to take this out, they saw the mass on the left side had grown to the size of an orange.
Wow.
So it had my windpipe down to 7 centimeters open.
Because if you think about it, that's pretty big.
Yeah, I couldn't have had this conversation. Like I would have to talk a few words and pause. Yeah. And that was happening over time, and that's what made me go back to the doctor.
Of breath.
Yeah. So they're like, we got to get that out of there when we cut your chest open. We'll take that out and everything will be good. So I coughed. And I just remember them coming in, cutting me, blood went everywhere, and the surgeon was like, we're taking you back down to the operating room.
Wow.
And that's the last thing I remember. And they did 3 emergency surgeries. I was hemorrhaging from the inside, and they couldn't figure it out because when they cut my chest bone open, they wrap it back with wire and put 2 titanium plates. Ooh. And what the surgeon ended up telling us afterwards is the spot where I was hemorrhaging was right where the plate ends, because the surgeon that did the plate, he said we can't take that plate off because we won't be able to put it back on. Okay. So I ended up in a coma for 6 days.
Wow.
And with that, I didn't experience what my mother, my wife, and them saw me. Yeah. All of that.
So you had no knowledge of that None of that.
And it was like I couldn't even move because my wife got a video of my son rubbing my forehead and touching my eyes, and my eyes didn't even move. So and my mother, both my mother and my wife didn't say this to each other, but they both were like, when I came out, everything was like, you felt like a corpse. We thought it was over. Wow. And it was so bad that when I came to, some of the doctors that helped me in that point of time, they walked past the room and saw me up and came back in. I'm like, oh my God, you are a miracle, Mr. Temple, blah, blah, blah. You don't know me and blah, blah, blah. But that whole 6 days, I was traveling. I was in parks. I was at this, in my mind. Yeah. In my mind, I had this thing where if I looked up, I guess I knew I was in the hospital. If I looked up, it would take me back to the hospital room. Okay. So I was in one situation where I was in like a movie theater and a bar mixed together, and one of my friends was trying to fight a white guy, but he didn't see the real big muscular white guy that was with him. And I told him like, hey, I can't help you because I got my chest all messed up. Right. But you got to get out of here. And the big white guy got up and came over toward us, and I looked up, and when I would flip, it would be a box. So I would flip, and the box would flip, but it was a white lady inside the box with me, and I was apologizing to her like, I'm sorry that I'm taking you with me. Yeah. And she was like, don't worry about it. She had a computer on wheels, and she was like, don't worry about it. My computer's right here. After all of that, I figured that was one of the nurses in the room. Yeah. Yeah. Your subconscious. I caught a glimpse of one of the nurses in the room or whatever. So I was, it was crazy. I was at clubs, party stores, all of this stuff. But when I came to, I remember hearing in my mind, I'm thinking I'm in the back of a party store in a voodoo hospital. That's what my mind had put together.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, I got to get out of here. I'm like, they're doing voodoo.
That was the first thought, yeah.
But in my mind, I heard an African doctor tell my wife, you better bring $2,600 in here tomorrow. We're not doing nothing else for your husband.
Wow.
And I was mad, and I'm like, wait a minute. And I hear my daughter calling my name.
Like this,
I hear my daughter saying, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. And I'm looking around, and I don't see my daughter. I said, they playing that over the speaker. I said, they playing with my mind. But when I heard that doctor threaten my wife, I was mad. I was like, I need to get in there. And I was like, I'm just going to tell them, let me die. And I'll be on before I can get that full thought out, I said, God, touch me and get me out of here.
Wow.
And that's the last I remember being out. I remember seeing my mother standing up next to the bed. And I immediately tried to tell her, Mom, curse the negative energy in here that the devil's work go against him. And she was like, what are you saying? But as you see, I had tubes and stuff. She couldn't understand what I was saying. So I'm getting frustrated. She's like, baby, calm down. Your pressure's going up. You're tripping. I was like, no. So I just rested. And I was like, Lord, please let them understand what I'm trying to say. Let them understand what I'm trying to say. So when I came back to again, I don't remember them taking the tubes out, but they said I was woke because I had to breathe a certain way and all that.
Right.
But I just remember when I came to and didn't have the tube down my mouth because they kept the one down my nose for a while.
Okay.
I could talk to my mother and I was like, Mom, I said, curse the negative energy in this place so that Satan's work go against him. And she was like,
all the strength that you had probably at that time.
She said, okay, baby, I will. So I was like, where are we? And she was like, we at the hospital. I said, we at the voodoo hospital? And she was like, no. So I looked out the window and I'm like, that parking lot huge. I'm like, this ain't no party store.
Yeah.
So
right, like you had saw, yeah.
She was like, we're at Beaumont, Royal Oak in the ICU. I was like, I said, where's that African doctor? I need to talk to him. And she was like, what African doctor?
Right.
I was like, the one that threatened Mel. And she was like, baby, I ain't seen no African nothing right here. She said, I've only seen one black person and they wasn't that dark.
That's probably why when you asked her that, she like, okay, it got to be for a reason. Exactly. But she like, okay, because I didn't know. Yeah.
Yep. So that was me coming out of the coma. So after the coma, for the first 2-3 days, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, it was complete chaos.
Okay. Would you go back to that moment?
Nope, I didn't do none of that.
Okay.
But it would be complete chaos. One time I was in the street, it was people everywhere. And it was a bunch of females with little skimpy clothes on, and they had their kids selling stuff so they can make money. And then it was guys trying to rob the girls and all that. And I was like, I got to get out of here. So I called my angels, because I always use my angels.
Wow.
I use my angels for everything. I don't care if I need a parking spot. I tell the angels, man, give me a parking spot.
Okay.
And some people don't know that we supposed to use the angels have to do what we say. Yeah, they have to do what we say. We're not under angels. Angels are under us. So people don't use them. Some people, angels probably got so much dust on their wings they couldn't fly if they did call them. But I called for my angels. I'm like, man, come get me out of here. Y'all come get me out of here. And some big guys showed up, biggest buildings.
Wow.
But when they came, they kind of got busy. They started knocking people out and all that stuff. I'm like, man, nah, that's not what I wanted. I just want y'all to come and get me up out of here.
Yeah.
And these like
right about the wrong
these
stuff.
kind of thoughts going on. I would close my eyes and see bullet holes inside of animals.
Wow.
And the blood drops will come out and turn to people. It was just craziness. And the third day, they came in and was like, Mr. Temple, we're going to have you walk, and you're going to get some sleep after that because we're going to make you walk and get yourself tired. Okay. So I was like, okay, let's do it. I'm thinking I'm about to get up and walk.
Yeah, because after a couple of days, I'm sure you were
6 days
ready for...
I couldn't walk. They had to teach me how to walk again. Like, put your foot here.
Yeah.
Put your foot here. I couldn't take a spoon and put ice chips to my mouth. Couldn't do none of that. Yeah. I ended up with a pressure sore on the back of my head, like a bed sore.
Yeah.
But a pressure sore on the back of my neck. All that in 6 days. So I'm like, what happens to when people are in comas for months? Like,
exactly.
That's insane.
Yeah. A lot can happen. So did you, to kind of compensate for that, did you put your head down to whatever you were trying to eat or drink? Okay.
No, I said, you're going to get your hand up.
Okay.
And so I just kept forcing. And when I couldn't do it, I was like, okay, well, whatever. You just ain't going to have none. And I'm...
Exactly. Now you like, okay, I won't... Yeah, exactly.
Because, then when I got my senses back, the first thing I'm trying to do is get on the phone.
Exactly.
Instagram, all that. I couldn't even hold the phone. I was like this. And I'm like, hey, I can't put my code in. Wow. And my daughter was like, Dad, you shaking. You can't hold the phone. Take your time. So, yeah, it was learning to get back into the regular regular flow of things or whatever. It was crazy.
Wow, that is an incredible story. I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're a lot better. So after that, after you kind of casted all of that negativity out, how has things been moving forward? Do you kind of still go back there? Do you like to talk about it? Did you get healing from talking about it?
When I first went home, for like the first 2 weeks or so, I struggled.
Okay.
It was like the devil kept saying, you could die anytime. See, you almost died that time. Like anytime. And I would be at home just in tears and mad and all that. And I was like, yo, this not it, man.
Yeah, this not me.
I said, God's hand touched you. And when God touched you, he don't just fix something. He make you whole.
Yes.
So I was like, I don't care what was ever wrong with my body. Whatever it was before this point, it's not wrong anymore.
Yeah.
He made me whole because the devil tried to take me out before.
Right.
And the last thing I said when he tried to do that, I was like, Father, save me. Lord, save me. I was like, God, I love you. Because I was I don't know what this was from. Oh, you know what? It was, do you use if anybody use CBD oil, be careful.
Oh, yeah.
If it has the marijuana, TCA, whatever, that THC. Yeah. I had pain from the thyroid. And I put some here, right? And I rubbed it all on my chest or whatever, and it seeped into my bloodstream.
Got it. Okay.
Dropped my blood pressure.
Wow, because of the THC that was
so
in
I got up to go use the bathroom and stumbled into the closet. I was like, oh my God. So I went to the bathroom, and as I'm trying to hit the toilet, I feel myself blacking out. So I'm like, what's going on? So I hit the shower, turn the water on, I holler for my wife.
Yeah,
I hopped in the shower in the cold water.
It's going right
straight into it. Yeah, so I cold water shower or whatever, but I just felt myself dying. Wow. And I was just like, God, save me, Lord, I love you. And she said I fell on the couch, eyes wide open, pissed on her leg.
Okay.
You know, when you go,
right,
you let go.
Yeah.
And she just calling, and then I heard her say, he's moving his eyes. And I was like, babe, what's up? She said, the ambulance on the way. They downstairs. She had to let him in the gate. So she go downstairs to open the door. When she ran down the stairs like that, I hopped up and put my jogger pants on and said, I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
So I'm going down the stairs. They're like, hold on, sir, sit down. They checked my blood. They said, your blood pressure's kind of low. We about to get you to the hospital. So they get me to the hospital. They trying to put the little EKG things on me, but I done rubbed that stuff on me, so it won't even stick.
It stick, yeah. He's like, I need to get
help.
Yeah,
it won't even stick. And found out, that's what that was all about. So all I know is to call on God.
That's it.
That's my.
And it has brought you out of every situation, and that His name holds weight.
Yes.
So whenever you are in those sticky situations, those situations where you don't know what to do, who to go to,
God.
who to talk to, call on Him.
Yes.
He's never too busy. He's always listening,
waiting on you.
He's just waiting on you to come to Him.
That's
all
how people
he
be like,
wants
I'm
to
waiting
do.
on God. I'm like, that's foolishness.
Yeah, He's waiting on you.
Everything that you could ever want, every bit of healing, every bit of success, wealth, or whatever it is that you want, God already got that sitting in glory waiting for you to tap into it. His job is done.
He's waiting. He don't want you to do it alone.
Waiting on God for nothing.
Waiting on like Photoshop.
Waiting. You see how I said I tried to learn it? Waiting. Thank you so much, Kool-Aid, for coming on and being a part of the show today. Your story was amazing. Thank you just for sharing. Yes. So before we get out of here, I do want to ask, what is one piece of advice that you can give for anybody that's going through any type of life experiences, health issues, anything along those lines?
Just know that God is energy. He created us from energy.
Yes.
And the energy that you give anything is what you're going to get.
That's true.
So don't allow anything to pull you down into a negative space, because once you get there, the devil going to tap dance on you until you out of here, because that's all he wants.
He going to tap on that mental.
Yeah, so you have to stay tapped in with God, because that's where your answer is. That's where your healing is. That's where your success is. That's where your wealth is there. Nothing that anybody on this earth can tell you about yourself that's a negative light can be real unless you accept it and allow that thing to, flourish in your life. So
that is so real.
Tap in with God first.
Yes, that is so real. So where can people find you at? Social media, clothing
Social
brand?
media, Kool-Aid.ayv. My brand, AYV Lifestyle. All social media is AYV Lifestyle. And definitely tap in with me on Facebook. I'm Fly Kool-Aid. If you want to protect you and your family with Legal Shield, tap in with me. I got you. And anybody need any questions, gotta ask questions about that, or need prayer, whatever it is, I can do what I can do. I ain't a pastor or preacher or nothing, but
got it.
I know.
So with the Legal Shield, I know you're the executive director for that. What would be an advice for insurance that you would want to give people?
So with Legal Shield, it's not insurance. You will actually get Legal Shield attorneys to look over your insurance. We're legal protection to protect you from anything, whether good or bad. If you need something done on the legal aspect, we got you. We have a network of over 9,000 law firms all across America and Canada.
Wow.
You pay a monthly fee, you covered under that umbrella, and you get to utilize no matter where you are. If you got a situation in California, you open up the app, tap contact firm. It's going to contact your home firm. You tell them where you at, what's going on. They put you in contact with the firm under the umbrella there, and they take care of the situation.
Nice. So we'll be a point of contact at Legal Shield if you wanted to sign up to be a member or
definitely me. You can hit me up at 313-779-8892. I will get you together, and no matter what it is, if you got a question about it or anything like that, tap in with me. And if you want to just go on the site and check it out, it's temple.legalshieldassociate.com.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Again, I do appreciate you being here.
Yes.
Make sure you guys tune in next week at 1 p.m. right here on One Step Closer. And I just want to encourage you that today and every day you are one step closer. Have a great week and weekend.
Peace.
One step closer. You got to get one step closer. Closer to love, closer to God, closer to who you want to be in life. Why? You got to get one step closer. Closer to love, closer to God, closer to who you want to be in life. Take one step at a time.